Hello and welcome to another tutorial. In this one we are going to build a maze. So I'm going to call this game Cheese Hunter. Now when you hit create you always start with the cat, so we're going to just double click him and delete him to start off with a new character. So we're going to add our new sprite from the library, and I'm going to choose animals. And then I'm going to look for a mouse and hit OK. Alright, so we're going to give our mouse some script. So as always, we're going to go to the events and start with the first one, when clicked. We're going to add in our controls, which would be our forever loops. We're going to control this using our up, down, and left and right arrows. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use an if-then repeating loop. So I'm going to choose my sensing options, and I'm going to choose that if I key in the up arrow, so it says space, but that's okay, we're going to change that. So if I use the up arrow, then I'm going to use a motion. I'm going to have my mouse point in the direction 0, which would make him face upward. So I'm going to take this point in direction and just change that to 0 so that he's going to go upwards. And then I'll have him move 5 steps. So when I hit run, if you press the up arrow, you'll see that he now points upwards. Alright, so we're going to repeat most of those steps to make it turn left, right, and also go down. So let's go back to the control and add another if-then loop. This time it's going to sense that if I press the down arrow, so we're going to change that to down, then he is going to, I'm going to have to go back to my motions and make him move again. This time we're going to point him to face down, so we want to change that to 180. And again, have him move 5 steps. Okay, let's repeat going back to our controls, adding in another if-then. I might as well just take 2 of these for now to save time later, because I still have to do left and right. So I'm going to go into my sensing options, and I want to have options for if I use the right arrow, and I'm also going to take one on my other if-then statement if I use the left arrow. Alright, go into our motions, and this time again we need to point them in the right direction. So if I want him to go right, I'm going to point him, I'm going to leave it at the 90. So he's going to turn 90 degrees. There. And let him go 5 steps forward. Alright, so if I want to press my left key, I'm going to point him at -90, opposite direction. And again, move 5 steps. So we should be able to run our script now, and you should be able to use the controls on your keypad going up, down, left, and right, and you should do as you've programmed. Alright, going on to our next step. What we're going to do here is we're going to create the cheese for our mouse. So we don't have one already in the sprites library, so we're going to go to the Paint New Sprite. Okay, so you'll end up with this area here. So you can choose to outline in whatever color you want. I'll just leave it on black and choose my line thickness. Or you can choose your line thickness down here and use this one for a straight line. When you draw your line, if you hold down the shift button, you see it draws a straight line there. You can always hit the undo if you've made a mistake or you don't like what you've done there. So if I start to draw my line, okay, now it's only going up and down, which isn't exactly what I want. So I'm going to undo that. Okay, just make sure you're in bitmap mode, which we are. Alright, let's try this again here. So I'm going to try to draw a line. Okay, my shift does not seem to be working for me. Okay, I'm just going to play around here for a second and see what... Okay, well, it's drawing straight lines for me anyway, so I'm not sure why that was different than the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and undo those. And I'm going to just start drawing my cheese here. Alright, so I'm going to leave a little space here. And connect it back to my starting point. Now I'll make it look a little bit more realistic. Give it some depth. And come up. Okay, so those are for straight lines. I want to use the paintbrush tool to draw free-form lines and squiggly lines. Draw little holes in my cheese. Okay, if you want to create some holes, you can use the circle one. Draw a couple circles in your cheese. And then use the paintbrush fill option and add a color to fill in your cheese pieces. And there we go. We can also see that it's down in here now too. So I'm actually just going to rename this and call it cheese. Going back, and I'm going to also rename my mouse and call him Mouser. Alright. Now, one thing I forgot to mention when we go back to the cheese, we want to make sure it's centered. So there's a button up here and it says Set Costume Centered. So we're going to take this diagonal piece here and I'm going to move it till it's in roughly the middle of my cheese. There, that's going to center it. And now that's good to go. So we're going to go back to scripts and we're going to add a script to our cheese. So we always start with events. Here we go. We're going to start with when it's clicked. If my mouse collects cheese, I want to make sure he gets a score for that. So that would be found in your data. And I need to make a variable for that. So I'm going to call that the score. And I'm going to drag my set score to 0. Okay, so I'm always starting at 0 until I collect the cheese. Now, we're going to add another forever loop in here. So we're going to go back to controls. And what I want my cheese to do is disappear and reappear, essentially at random. So my mouse always has to go find him. So I'm going to go into the motions, and I'm going to have my cheese go to different X and Y spots. But I'm going to have the computer do that for me. So I'm going to choose from operators. I'm going to have it pick randomly. Okay, so my X spot I'm going to pick randomly. all throughout the layout. So minus 220 up to 220. And same thing on the y-axis. We're going to put that in there and have it pick randomly. Go for minus 160 to 160. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a control option. And I'm going to have that cheese wait until my mouse comes and finds it. So the cheese is going to sit there forever. It will move randomly, but after it waits until and it senses that my mouse has touched him. So I'm going to drag in the touching my mouser. And if my mouse gets that cheese and touches it, I want to get a point for that. So I'm going to go back to data, and I'm going to have the score change. You can have your score changed by 1 or however much you want. So we're going to change it by 10. 10 points per cheese. And when he gets that cheese, I think I'll play a sound. So we're going to choose play a sound. So I can, right now it's just set to pop. I'm going to go up into sounds by pressing that tab, and I can click on the library here. I'm going to choose a sound from the library. So I can scroll through all of them and see what we have. I'm going to play the chomp. So I've got to make sure that I click on it so that that box is around it before I press OK. And now I can go back to my script by pressing on the script tab. Now I'll be able to pull down the drop-down menu and choose the new one that I've chose, or you can record your own sound if you like. So we can test that out. I can move my mouser now with the arrows, and when he gets the cheese, there's a chomping sound, and you can see my score up top going up by 10 each time. Alright, now, we're also going to need to have a bad guy in this game, and that's going to be a new sprite again. So we're going to go into choose from the library. And I'm going to choose a bad guy for my character, or for my game, I should say. I'm going to go with this ghost. So make sure that box is highlighted and press OK. Now I can start coding for him. So again, events, always start with when quit. So my ghost is going to start off hidden. So I'm going to go into looks, and I'm going to have him hide. And then what I want to do is I'm going to have him wait and randomly show up as well. So I'm going to choose a forever loop because I want him to continuously be changing positions as well. So I'm going to have him wait, but I'm not going to have him wait 1 second. I'm going to have, again, the computer randomly have him wait from, let's say, 5 to 10 seconds. And at that point, he needs a motion. So we're going to have him just appear and reappear in random spots. So we're going to go to various X and Y spots, but we're going to make those random spots. So on each of the X and Y's, I'm going to have it pick randomly. And again, to fill the whole grid, let's go from minus 220 to 220. And minus 160 to positive 160 again. And then after that happens, we're going to have him show up. So he won't be hiding anymore. Oh, and that just notice there, my hide should be inside my loop. So I want to just make sure that I put that inside my loop as well. Okay. All right, now I'm going to throw in another control, and after he shows up, I'm going to again have him wait and at random. This time we'll have him wait 3 to 6 seconds. So I can just play, sorry, can't speak, and get our cheese, and eventually my ghost should start showing up. There he is. And he's disappeared again. So that's a start. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make the ghost chase the mouse. So to do this, in fact, I'm going to take that hide out again. I should have left that where it was. Sorry about that. I'm going to put that back up top. Okay, and I'll put all of this stuff back in that forever loop. And this time we're going to add a motion, and we're going to do a set rotation style. Let's see if I can find it here. There it is, set rotation style. And attach our forever loop back on. Okay, so let's just see what that does for our game now. Wait for my ghost to show up. Oh, here he comes. Okay, he hasn't done a whole lot, so, oh, I know what we're missing. I haven't chased the mouse yet. So, what we're going to do is we're going to add another script to the ghost. So I'm going to add another whole script. So we're going to start off another one. And this time, again, I'm going to have him hide. And I'm going to set, actually, I'm going to take this set rotation stuff down here. Put that back in there. Sorry, changing it up a little bit. I'm going to add in another forever loop. And this time I want the ghost to point towards my mouse. So I'm going to take this point towards inside the forever loop, so he's constantly chasing my mouser. And when he sees the mouse, he's going to start moving towards him. We don't want him going too fast, so we'll just move one step. And then we're going to add a control. So if he actually catches my mouse, let's just say let's add an if then. If he touches my mouse, I'll throw that in there, then we're going to say the game's over. So we're going to hit control and we're just going to stop all. Okay, so let's rerun that now and see what happens when the mouse shows up, or when the ghost shows up. So now he's slowly making his way following the mouse. And you can make the ghost appear longer or shorter, and we never know where he's going to appear, so sometimes he actually lands right on the mouse. Okay, so he got me there. Alright. Now, we can add some music as well, so if we want to add music to the game, we would add it to the stage rather than one of the sprites. So we'd go over here to the stage backdrop and click on there. Then what we would do is, again, under events, choose when clicked, add in a forever loop if you want the music playing throughout the whole game, and choose sounds. And with sounds, we're just going to play sound until the game is done. Now it's set for pop, so again, you would want to go into your sounds and choose something from the library. This time you can go into music loops for your song itself and try out different sounds. Okay, I'm just going to choose the cave to start. So I'm going to hit OK on that one and go back to my scripts and make sure I re-choose that from the drop-down menu now. Okay, now we've got some sound, we've got a bad guy, we've got a mouse. We still need to build the maze. So we're going to go into making the maze. So it's much like doing the cheese. We need to go into the paint. We're going to the paint option and choose that one. And we're going to use the straight lines. So we're going to start by drawing the outer shape of the maze. And if we hold down the shift key on the keyboard, you can make sure that the lines are perfectly vertical or horizontal. So that's where I was going with at the beginning. If I drew a straight line, I can go diagonally, but if I hold the shift down, then I know that it's going to be vertical or horizontal. Alright, so I'm going to choose your color that you want to outline your maze. I think I will go with a red, and you can choose the thickness you want your lines to be. So I'm going to make them a little bit thicker for my maze. And I am going to start drawing the outer shape of my maze. Go right down to the bottom. And back up to the top. Now you can see that on the left that it's not centered, but keep in mind we can always use this center tab to locate the center of it and move it around so that it fits. So I'm off the screen. I might have made it slightly too big, so that's where we might have to play with things. So if you don't like what you've done, hit clear, start all over, not a big deal. So maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller this time. I'll go to there. So you can see what you've built on your screen. Into there. And back up to the top. If they don't connect, not to worry. You can always add it in. If it's not perfect, hit the undo button. Try again. There we go. Alright, now we're going to add some lines inside of our maze. So you can play around with this and do as many lines as you want. When you do your lines, make sure that you make your areas big enough for your character to fit, in this case my mouse. And I'm going to add some other enemies in here as well, and I'm going to want both of those to fit. So we'll be sizing our characters down after. So to start off, I'm just going to add in some random lines for my maze. Well, maybe I'll put one there. We'll make it too difficult to start. They're just obstacles to work around. Alright, that's not bad. I think I want a little bit more space here. So I can use this hand button, the select tool, and highlight that whole box, and then I can drag it over. Now if I haven't left enough room, there might not be enough room here, I can use the eraser tool and I can erase some of that just to give a little bit more room here. And I don't really like that line there, so I'm going to erase that as well and maybe add a different a line in here. Maybe I'll just do that. Didn't quite go long enough. Try it again. Go back 2 steps. How about there? So it's not a very complicated maze, pretty simple to start. You don't want to make it too hard your first time because things get stuck and bounce around, which we'll talk about shortly. So we do need to add a script to our maze. First thing we want to do is go back to script, and we want to make sure that it's going to be fully visible. So we're going to choose the event, choose when clicked, and we're going to make sure our stage is centered. So we're going to go to the X, Y values and make sure that those are both set to 0. Okay. Alright, so now it's been centered. Now, one thing you'll see that if I press start, my mouse can run through the walls. We don't want that to happen, so we're going to need to fix that. So what we're going to do, and we're going to shrink that down. So what we want to do is first shrink them all down. I'm going to start with the mouse, and I'm going to choose a looks button here, and I'm going to find the one that says set size to a percentage, and we're going to add that right at the top. So he needs to be much smaller. I'm going to try him at 30% and see where that goes. He's really small now, so I guess he doesn't need to be that small. We can go 40 maybe. Alright, good enough. You can play around with the sizing. I'm going to shrink the cheese down as well because that is really big. So let's set the size on the cheese. Let's make that 50% and see where that goes. That's good size for the cheese. Alright. We're going to make sure that our mouse fits through all of the mazing as well. But first we want to, let's see, let's make our mouse, let's go back to the mouse, let's make sure that he always starts in the same spot. That way we kind of get an idea of where to go. So let's use a motion and have him always choose a starting point. Let's just see what happens if I put in -200 to 75. That might need to change if that's off the screen. Yeah, so he's a little bit off, so I'm going to change that a little bit and maybe have him start at -180. See where that puts him. Okay, he's almost there. Let's go -175. You'll have to play with your own numbers here to get your maze perfect. There we go. All right. Now, let's see. We could let's add a background color to our maze. It looks a little bit boring. So let's go over back to our stage, and we're going to choose this paintbrush option. Okay, and we can give our background maze a color, and you can play around with different colors and use the paintbrush option to fill and see if you like those options or not. I'm going to choose something, which one? Pretty bright. I might stick with that one. Okay, you can also go into the color palette wheel and have more options as well. I think I like that other one I picked. I'm going to stick with that one. Alright. Next. We are going to go back to our mouse and make sure that if it hits a wall, let's just go on our script of the mouse, it stops and it goes back. So we're going to go into here when I press the up arrow, and after it points in the directions and it moves, we're going to add another if-then statement. So I need a control, and I'm going to throw in another if-then under the bottom of this one. And I'm going to throw in a sensor that what happens if he touches a wall. We don't want him to go through the wall. So if he touches the maze, and as you can see down here, it's labeled Sprit 1, which is kind of confusing. So I'm actually just going to hit the info and rename that to maze, and then I can go back. Alright, so back on my mouse, I'm going to have him, if he touches the maze, then I'm going to have him move back 5 more steps. Okay, so that's only if he touches the wall going, this was going up. So I need to repeat those loops through all of the different directions. So in the controls, throw in another if-then underneath each of those. Okay, so in this direction, if he touches the maze, then his motion needs to move. And actually, he needs to move negative steps because he needs to go back. So let's change that one as well. There, -5. Okay, so that's the top two. Let's do the same thing for the bottom when he goes left and right. So again, if he touches the maze, we are going to have him move back 5 steps. And repeat that on your last one. So hit the controls, use an if-then statement. If he touches the maze, then he needs a motion of moving back 5 steps. Alright, so we can okay, we got stuck on that one. So I'm just going to double check what I missed on here. Going back to the top, if you touch the maze, you move back. If you touch the maze, you move back. And if you touch the maze, you move back. What did I miss in here? Let's just see. Okay, so it's in the direction when he's going left. I've missed something there. So let's have a peek at that one. So using the left arrow, point in the direction, move 10 steps. If touching maze, then move -5. So why is that not working? Maybe because they're not set at the same. So I've got moving forward 5 and back 5. Let's try that again. That should fix it. There we go. Problem solved. So you'll see that moving forward and back, I had them equal, positive and negative. Alright, now sometimes this system will glitch out because of the mouse's tail, and he'll actually get stuck. So I'm going to see if I can get him stuck for you to show you what I mean. Okay, well it didn't work this time. It's not one of my harder mazes, but if that does happen, what you want to do is you want to click on your mouse and you want to go into costumes. Then here I can choose the paintbrush tool and click on your mouse. Oh, sorry, I chose the wrong option here. I am going to I want to click this convert to bitmap here. So just to go back where we were at our scripts. Let's say you get stuck. You're going to hit your mouse, go into your costumes, and click this convert to bitmap. That way we can do a little editing. So you can use the eraser tool and actually take off some of his tail so that it doesn't get stuck, and you can see that that's changed right away. So hopefully that fixed a problem if you've got a complicated maze and he's getting stuck on the walls and you can't move him. The other thing you can do is make sure that he's centered. So use your center tool and just make sure that you've got him centered. Alright, now we need to, there's a little bit of a problem here I noticed here, is that cheese. My mouse isn't going to be able to collect the cheese if it's outside of the maze. So you may need to do some editing with your values. So if you click the cheese and go back into your scripts, I have it picking a random on the y-axis, which is up and down, going too far. So I can change that and maybe just put in -40 to +140. So you can play around with your own values depending on your maze. Alright, I'm going to add in an enemy now. So we're going to add in another sprit. And this time I'm going to choose from the library. And we're going to add in the beetle. So I'm going to look for that beetle. I mean, you can choose whichever one you want. Maybe your enemy's the frog. Maybe it's a lion. Maybe it's a person. You can choose whichever enemy you want. So I'm just going to go to animals to make it easier and choose this beetle. Alright, so again, as always, go into the events and let's start our script with when clicked. Alright, so first of all, he's too big. So let's change his size right away this time. So we're going to choose set size from the looks tab. And we're going to shrink him down quite small. I'm going to try 30. That's not bad. We'll leave him at 30. We can change that later if we have to. So let's give him a motion. We're going to have him go to various positions. So we're going to choose the go to XY. And we're going to try, I might have to change these values later on, but let's just try negative 30 to 80. And then I'm going to also point him in direction of 90. Alright, so after that, if I hit run, you'll see what happens. Not a lot. Because we haven't actually told him to move. We've got him pointing in the right direction, but he's not moving. So let's go into our controls and put on a forever loop and make him move. Add a motion in there of moving forward. We'll get him to move forward 5 steps, which is the same speed we're moving. You can play around with the speeds if you want him to go slower or faster, then change the number of steps. Okay, add another control and we're going to add in a variable. So we're going to throw in another if-then variable and we're going to say again, right now you can see he's going through a wall. So again, we need to sense that if he touches the maze, there's a problem. So if he touches the maze, we're going to also have him move back. So make sure that you make him move in the negative direction. Alright, and then we will have him, we're going to have him turn 90 degrees to go off in a new direction. Alright, so if we hit run, we can watch what happens. So right now he's just spinning. He's also stuck on my line, so that's where you have some playing around to do. So I'm going to maybe just move him forward a little bit and have him sitting at negative 110. That should get him in here somewhere. There we go. So when we start, he's starting here. Alright, so I'm going to let that run. And he's just moving around 90 degrees. But there's a problem. He's going to end up in this loop of doing a square. So to fix that, we're going to have another if-then statement and make it a variable. So we're going to go back to controls. Okay, and this time we're going to have, where are we here? I want an if-then else statement. So we want to use this one. Now with this one, I'm going to essentially, I want him to rotate 90 but then switch another 90 the other direction and do that at random so that he's not always going the same direction. So I've got the if he touches the maze he moves back 5. I want to throw this one in. So now I've got him turning 90 one way. I'm also going to have him turn 90 the other way. And don't forget about this one here. So what is it that we want? We want to make sure that it's going to be picked at random, so he's not always going the same way. Oh, actually, I am missing a step here. I am going to want to throw in this one, because I've got 2 options now. So I want to have pick at random one of those 2 options. One of those 2 options equals 1. So now, if it hits the wall, it will turn, but it's going to randomly decide to go in other directions. All right, my ghost is pretty big. I'm going to shrink him down a little bit too, just for a second here. So I'm going to go back to looks and just set his size as well. I don't mind him being a little bigger than the rest, but he was a little bit. So what happens when I get hit right now? The beetle doesn't do anything for me. So the beetle's supposed to be my enemy, so he needs to somehow affect my the actions of the mouse as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into our enemy, which is our beetle script, and we're going to add to this forever loop. So we're going to add another control at the bottom, which is going to be another if-then statement. So again, I want to sense that if he touches the mouse, the game just doesn't keep going. So this time, if the beetle touches my mouser, this time I'm going to broadcast a message. So this one I'm going to find in the events as well. And I'm going to broadcast a message if he touches my mouse. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to type in a new message. And I want it to say, if the beetle catches me, game over. So we can type that in. Let's leave it there. Okay, so I'm purposely going to try to catch this beetle just to show you what happens. So the beetle catches me, but it actually freezes your character from moving, but you can't actually tell the game's really over. So we need to add an extra, it doesn't really do anything yet, so I need to add a script to the beetle or to my mouse as well. So we're going to go back to this, to your mouse, and we're going to just add into when you receive that message. So when you receive that message that's game over, then we're going to control that, we're going to stop all other scripts. So we're going to pull over this stop. We're going to stop all other scripts. So let's run that again. And now I have no control over my mouse. Which, okay, it's game over, but it's kind of hard to tell. So we're gonna also add to that. So, but first, let's add more beetles. Let's add some more enemies. So what we can do is we can double click and we can duplicate him a few times. But we don't want these beetles all going in the same direction at the same time. So if I hit start, they're all going to start at the same time and go to and do the same thing. Yes, they'll be random, but they're all starting here. So at each one, you can just change the XY coordinates on your grid on where it's starting. So you can play around with some numbers. Sometimes it takes a little reworking because you'll get stuck on lines and they won't work. So you can play around with these numbers a little bit. I'm going to go to, let's start, oopsies, -20 and 30. And my other one, maybe I'll start him over on the positive side of the x-axis and we'll put him down on the y. So when I started, I still had some starting pretty close to each other. You can play with those numbers to see where you want to start. So I might change that up a little bit. I had, maybe I'll change this one to 0 and just see what that is. Not a whole lot difference. So when you click on it, you can see which beetle that one was when it started. So if you want to play around with those numbers at all. I'm going to leave that for now just to keep going here. Alright, so what we want to do next is I've got my score here for when I collect my cheese. If you want to keep track of score and you want your high score to always show, or you want to have people try to beat your high score, we can add an extra code for that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the cheese, because that's where we're getting our score from when we get our reward. And we're going to add in another if-then statement. So I'm already in the controls, so I'm going to drag down another if-then statement. And this time what I'm going to add in is I want to set a high score. So this time I'm going to use an operator, which is going to show me that I'm looking for the greater than symbol. And I'm going to go back to data, and I'm going to have, if my score is greater than the high score, we're going to set a new high score. So as you can see, I don't have a high score. I've only got scores. So we need to make another variable. And we're going to add in high score. Now I can drag that one over as well. So if my score is greater than the high score, then we're going to set a high score. Not to 0. We don't want to start a lower. We're going to set it to the score to beat. All right. Now, as I said earlier, when a beetle touches your mouse, it stops you from moving. So essentially the game's over, but it keeps running until the ghost comes and gets you. So if we want to tell people that the game is truly over, we can write a script for that as well. So we're going to go into the new spritz, and we're going to use the paintbrush again, and we're going to tell everybody that the game's over. So we're going to use the rectangle option. And we're going to choose a color, and we're going to make a box. And I'm going to fill that box in. Okay, he's not very centered there. So I'm going to try to center him. And I'll have to set the X and Y axis as well after so that he's in the middle. Now I'm going to add in my text, and I'll just make my text black. And I'm going to type in game over. You can change your fonts down here to whichever one you want. So you can have a look at the different fonts for your options there. If you want to make it bigger, then you would click on the select tool and highlight over there, and now you can drag the box to make it bigger and move it around to get it more centered. Alright, so I'm going to just rename that one Game Over so we know what it is. I like to name my things. Alright, and I'm going to go back to scripts. And I still have to write a script for this to show up. So this time we're going to go into the events, and we're going to put when I receive information that the game's over, I'm going to have this pop up centered. So I want it to go to the XY value of 0, 0, which is center on a grid. And I want it to show up. So I want to go into the looks of it, and I want to have it go to the front of my game, and I want it to show. So I'm just going to look for the show. There it is. And now if we run that, oops, alright, I am missing one more thing because I need another event. I need to start, I don't want it to be there all the time, so I want when the game starts, I want to hide it. And then when it receives that, it will appear. So we're going to try that again. I'm going to have a beetle kill me, and there it pops up centered for game over. Okay, so that is the basics of a maze with your ghost that attacks you, setting high scores, and having your enemies. So you can change your sounds. Sorry if that music in the background was annoying. You can also add other things like adding rocket power, so you could add a power boost if you want to hide all your enemies for 10 seconds when your mouse touches it. To do that, you would have to add a new sprite and a message to trigger a hide and wait to hide and wait show script for each enemy. You could also go in and have your cheese vanish and have it show up at random. So rather than if I go into my cheese script here, I could have it randomly go to different locations. Well, actually, I do that already. But you could have it hide and disappear and reappear and things like that. But hopefully that gives you the basics understandings on how to code your a maze game, and you can make your maze more difficult or whatnot. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.